housing bubble is a large run-up in the price of houses, usually followed by a correction and a return to more normal and affordable house prices. Usually, a housing bubble starts when something happens to increase the demand for homes. It can be an employment boom, increased immigration, or lower borrowing costs. For example, in 2009, the Bank of Canada dropped interest rates below 1% in response to the global financial crisis. That made mortgage borrowing much cheaper, and prices started to rise in Toronto and Vancouver. For years after that, prices grew much faster than home buyers' incomes. There are lots of elements that can inflate a housing bubble. There are speculators who flip houses, aggressive mortgage lenders who skirt the rules, and lately there's been a lot of talk about foreign buyers increasing the demand and driving up house prices. But according to Nobel Prize-winning economist Robert Shiller, a housing bubble is really a narrative that people tell themselves and each other. It's a narrative based on bad economics. House prices can only go up in this market. Buy a house today because it will be more expensive tomorrow. No one who ever bought into this market ever regretted it. None of these things are true about any housing market, but as the bubble builds and prices keep growing and growing, that narrative gets stronger and stronger, and prices begin to accelerate. A bubble usually ends with a correction that returns prices to more affordable levels. An economic slowdown or an increase in unemployment can be a trigger, and so can higher mortgage rates. When the Bank of Canada raised interest rates in the late 1980s, it burst a housing bubble in Toronto that had seen prices rise by 40% in a year. Prices fell for 7 years straight. A bubble will burst when prices simply become too high for local buyers. That's when demand slows, and so does price growth. But prices won't just crash. They'll move sideways for a while until the speculators and investors realize they're not making a profit anymore, and then the heavy selling begins, and that's when prices come down. So does Canada have a housing bubble? Let's put it this way. I wouldn't bet a 25-year mortgage on the notion that prices can only ever go up.